Hey y'all, This Is Us is back tonight because it's Tuesday night and I am finally on schedule with this. Can you believe it? I can't. Look at us. Who would have thought?
Not me.
Tonight, guys, we were talking about Four Fathers, which is the third episode of season 6 of This Is Us, and there was a lot in this episode. Some for the better, some for the worse. So let's review this episode and kind of discuss just where we are at this season, because this one I just feel like gets back to what This Is Us initially was, of kind of dealing with everyone's storyline, having some flashbacks, thematically connecting different people's experiences. You get to see four fathers deal with their shortcomings or the difficulties of being a father and kind of have a comparison between all of them that I think in conversation worked really well together, but in practice I feel like there was a little too much time spent with the wives, which I'm not complaining, because the mothers of this episode, despite it being titled Four Fathers, were really bringing their A game. I mean, Beth with her wine, which, girl, we know you and your pantry wine. I love it. And I think Madison is also very much like one of us fans. Both of them just kind of saying it how it is, being women who get angry and show that it's hard to be a mother, but like you still are a mother nonetheless. And these two women are both beautiful and complex and interesting, and I loved getting to see both of them, their interactions with their respective men, with Beth and Randall and Madison and Kevin, and I will go a little bit more into that in a bit. But we'll start with the great, and then we'll go to the not so great. The great was that I felt like, again, we're getting to see how these generational issues are translated between all four of the fathers, and how things from their past, even if we haven't fully seen it on screen thus far, impacts them in the way that they are fathers. For example, Toby's conversation with Kevin, which was a very nice, the grass is always greener on the other side until it isn't greener on the other side conversation. Toby discusses how his parents were better off if they were happy rather than together, which is obviously something he says to try to calm Kevin down, but from what we know, it is the beginning of the end, and he is foreshadowing it for himself and for Kevin that he and Kate are at some point going to get divorced. And I feel like this is where the episode bordered on life lessons from characters' experiences and having to do narrative work that the show needs to progress. For example, Kate and Toby's storyline was much about them not getting along and Toby trying to connect with his kids, but it was less about Toby trying to connect with his kids and more so like is not doing things the best way, and there are issues there, and setting up Kate and the mean jerk guy who I can't remember his name that she's supposed to end up marrying. There's just this issue with that the show has when it tries to do a little too much at a time. Obviously, I still enjoyed Kate's struggles. Like I said before, I liked seeing Beth and Madison, but to be really focused on the fathers was not the priority of this episode. I felt like the priority was to narratively progress the episode through this thematic episode, and that was the struggle. Although I do think now on the fly, I guess it's showing that fatherhood and motherhood are intrinsically like connected in the fact that these partners who are raising children together, it is not just like one of them is a super dad or not. And as we've said, shifting the scope of this show from being a Jack-centered show to a Rebecca-centered show, or from each of the big three, kind of from their connection to their family to like their new families in their own lives, I feel like that's something that again is important to the show. So it's like it's all good and bad. And I said I was going to structure this review a little bit more, changing it up on you guys. Apparently I'm not doing that. I feel like this show is just, the people who get this show get it, and the ones who don't. And so I feel like we can all talk the same way, but if this is really just too disjointed, y'all let me know in the comments. I did really like how some of the transitional elements really connected what each of the fathers was going through. So when Randall goes for his run after finding out that Deja did sneak away to Boston to go see Malik, which poor Deja, that was really short-lived. When Randall was like, you're not gonna be able to see him, and she was like, that's gonna be a problem. Is Deja pregnant? I feel like she's pregnant. I hate to make that assumption. The fact that the emphasis was like that she's going to go get birth control after this episode with Beth, I feel like the implication there might be that she's gonna have to see him because she's pregnant. But I also don't know. I feel like the show might not go that direction because last week's episode really was just about her becoming a woman, and I don't want the rest of her arc to be focused on that. But anyways, again, I'm rambling. But I like the transitional elements of Randall going for a run after that interaction, and then we see Kevin run to the door. So I liked those connections, seeing how these fathers all struggled to connect with their kids and wanting to be a good dad, because especially for Kevin and Randall, they had this wonderful influence of Jack in their life, and Jack also wanting to be a much better father than his dad. But it's funny just to see when we see all of these timelines at the same time and we see what these characters are all individually going through. It's funny to think that like Kevin would think his dad never struggled because he was such a great dad, or Randall would think that because Jack was concerned about being a good dad. And we see that in this episode. And one of my favorite parts of this episode was Jack being concerned that Kevin would remember his first movie as like a time he got lost in the mall and had to go to like the security offices, and his mom had to pick him up when Kevin's an actor now. And like, that was so sweet and touching. But I also thought it was a lovely line from Rebecca that until the day is over, you're never gonna know what they remember. And I think that's just a beautiful sentiment of life in general. I think parents have a tendency, especially the way this show is trying to present it, to feel like they're doing the worst possible job and be their worst critics and beat themselves up, because there are so many endless standards of people who they believe are doing better. But at the end of the day, it's like, your kids love you, and if Jack only knew when he's worried at that table about Kevin remembering things, that Kevin was gonna have his own concerns about his twins. It's just a full circle thing, and this show just makes me emotional, makes me think about life, and I that's why I love it. I said I would expand on Beth and Madison. I loved Beth's reaction to Deja and the fact that she got mad too, because usually her and Randall, I feel like Randall tends to be the little bit of the calmer one and Beth kind of goes on her tangents, but I loved getting to see them both riled up about something at the same time. I love Beth and Randall, and I remember there was a time in this show and in this fandom when we were like, are they gonna break up? And now it's hard to believe that they ever would, or we ever would have thought that they would. I love their dynamic as a husband and wife duo, but I also love like how Beth can be almost more mad than Randall in that moment, and then be able to realize like, we were kids once too, like we made mistakes. And then for Madison, I felt like this was the first time we really got to see her stand up for herself to Kevin in a way that wasn't just sort of passive aggressive, or wasn't sort of by default winning an argument, but was sort of, I have puke in my hair. Yes, our baby walked, but like, I'm so glad that she is asleep because I want to shower, because I want her guy friend Elijah, who I love that they're together. I think that's just a really wonderful element for her and Kevin to deal with. Now, Cassidy returned, and at first when they sent the "you up" text, we obviously thought he was going to text that co-star. Then for a split second, I was really hoping that it was Sophie, because she, I believe, lives on the East Coast now, and so there would have been that time difference. And I like that we're bringing Cassidy back. I feel like if Cassidy is back in the show, I hope she has a purpose outside of just being a love interest of Kevin's. I guess at the end of the day, if him and Cassidy are married, I'm not going to be devastated about it, but I still, and I'm stating this again, in case the writers see this and want to make a last minute change, in case this is not written to the show, he and Sophie need to end up together. Please and thank you. I also, and I want to know how you guys feel about this, so I'm just going to pose this as an open thing. We started the episode with young Jack, and we immediately get the reference that this smoker, this green egg, big green egg, references something tragic and something about his past and his parents. And by the end of the episode, we get a confirmation that this smoker injured Jack in some way, with Toby and Kate using it, but it also was the turning point, or the like definitive factor in ending Kate and Toby's marriage. I like that we have that cliffhanger, and I like that we have that seed planted for the rest of the show to kind of see how that pops up in this season, but it does feel kind of like something that could have been less expositionally dumped by Jack's wife saying like, oh honey, you don't have to use that like big green egg. I know it's when your parents' marriage fell apart. I feel like that was a little too on the nose, and I felt like I would have appreciated a little bit more. I can't believe you still use that big green egg. Like, your mom's told me the story behind that. Then in another couple episodes, see his scar, but then it's also like, it's adult Jack and we're dealing with kid Jack, so I don't know if it's jumping around too much and it's setting up exactly the expositional cue that we need for the rest of the season, or if it's like too much and they're trying to recreate a mystery of like, what is the big green egg thing, the way we were like, what happened on Super Bowl Sunday, like with Jack's death, you know? I feel like that's what they're trying to set up here. Mary and Blake Media, again, they talk about this a lot. It feels like a little bit too network TV-ish of this show that is so far beyond those type of cliches. But I do like the fact that we can really see Kate and Toby's marriage falling apart in this episode. Obviously, we know they're falling apart because we see it literally happening before our eyes, but then to have that like definitive reminder of like, no, they are gonna get divorced. For me anyways, the person who keeps saying, oh, vow renewal, like, I think probably needed, but at the same time, you guys let me know how you felt about that. And let me know how you felt about everything else in this week's episode of This Is Us. Leave it in a comment down below. And let me know what you thought about the promo, because one, a little bit of a poor editing job. I think they used the same clip twice within that promo, which was a little like the same shot of Jack going up to this house. And I don't know that I feel like season 6 is the time to have a Jack's mom died episode. Then again, I could be wrong. The show usually tends to do really great special episodes like that, but I feel like that's not necessarily the story I want to see next week. Feels like a pause from the storyline that kind of matters, which is progressing towards Rebecca's death. And I feel like there's key elements of Kevin getting married to someone, his wedding ring in the future, of where Deja is in the future, of Annie, Tess, Franny, Nick, Jack, Haley. Like, I want to see where all of them go the progression of Kate and this new guy, because even though he was nice to her, I don't know if he should be with her. Anyways, what do you guys think about the promo? Let me know in the comments down below as well. Thank you for watching. I'm sure most of you clicked off by now, but I do really appreciate all of you who have stayed, and I would love if you liked this review and considered subscribing to this channel. Hit that red button, turn it gray, because I'm doing weekly This Is Us reviews because it's one of my favorite shows of all time, but I do plenty of movie and television related content on this channel as well. Thank you so much for watching again. Have an absolutely amazing night, and I will see you in my very next video. Bye, y'all.